Hello and welcome back to the Big Jake podcast. It is episode number 7. We're here on May 7th, 2023, Sunday. Back to our Sunday schedule. Excited to be here and got a lot of fun things to discuss. So, most recently, this last week, I did a couple of shows. One show was at the Louisville Comedy Club on Wednesday. I was there and featured for a comedian who's Ben Palmer. Ben Palmer is an interesting guy. I really liked him. He's a traditional comedian turned YouTube TikTok comedian. So he started doing regular comedy, and you can tell that he started doing regular stand up. But now he does these troll based comedy adventures. It's interesting. His handle on Instagram or TikTok is Palmer Trolls. And he'll do this stuff where he'll pretend to be a reporter and contact a company and try to verify a quote from the company's CEO. So he'll pretend to be a reporter saying, "Hey, did your CEO say this, yes or no?" And the quote is ridiculous. It's way out there. And the whole point is to get them to react and to, you know, figure it out. He One of the ones that he did was he contacted SpaceX and asked if this quote by Elon Musk, if it was a real quote, and the quote was something like, "We need to go to Mars to get space rocks to feed poor people." Space rocks. And so it's just this goofy, there's no way anybody's taking this serious, but he sends it to their PR people and they're like, no, that's not a real quote. And he reacts to it, and it's fun. So I didn't know that when I featured for him on Wednesday. I thought he was just a regular comedian. I was chatting with him up behind, in the green room before the show. Normal guy talking about where he was coming up, what sort of clubs he worked and all of that. And then I featured, so I did the second spot. June Dempsey did the first spot, very funny. And I did the second spot, did about 20 minutes. The crowd was into it. It wasn't a huge crowd, but it was a good crowd for a Wednesday, and they were having a good time. And then he comes up there, and the screen goes down, like the projection screen goes down as he's walking up, and then he stands off to the side, and he's got like a screen clicker in his hand, and he starts going through these slideshows and showing these videos and doing everything, and I'm blown away. It's so funny, so weird. I was into it from start to finish and really enjoyed it. So if you get a chance to see Ben Palmer on a show, especially live, man, I thought it was a blast. Then yesterday was the Kentucky Derby, and so I live in Louisville. So the Kentucky Derby is a big deal. A lot of schools give the kids the day off on the Friday before the Kentucky Derby. I don't know why. They just do. That's how big of a deal the Kentucky Derby is. So the Kentucky Derby happened yesterday, and I went to Cincinnati to do a show. So it's weird. I got out of town when everybody else is coming to town. I wasn't that far away, and I didn't stay the night, but I went up to Cincinnati to do a show called Heaven Town. So they usually call it Helltown, and they called it Heaven Town because it was the clean version. And me and a few other comedians did comedy. Now, I do clean comedy. That's my thing. That's what I like. That's what I'm going for. There are jokes that I would never say because they're just not my style. But a lot of comedians who are just regular old comedians are like, "Hey, I could do clean comedy because I can talk without cursing." Okay. But there's more to it than just that. And it's not whenever you say, "Hey, you need to be clean," people think, "Oh, here are the things I can't say." As opposed to, here are all of the millions of things that you can say. They don't look at it the right way. And so instead they're like, "Where's the line? Let me get as close to the line as possible." It's that old thought experiment where you say, "Stop thinking about elephants." And then you started thinking about elephants for the first time. Like, if no one said don't think about elephants, you wouldn't have thought about elephants. But if you say you need to be clean, a comedian will say, "Where's the line? Let me get as close to the line as possible." As opposed to, just do jokes about peanut butter. Just do jokes about dogs. Just do jokes about dipsticks or jokes about Alaska. There's all of these, there's 1,000 millions of topics that you can do jokes about. But whenever they say you got to be clean, they think, "Okay, where's the line? Let me go right up to the line." No, there's so much out there. What's the matter with you? That gets frustrating to me. I mean, I get it. Clean comedy is more of a skill. It's something you got to work on. But yeah, there's just so much. Some of the best comedians do clean comedy, but not because they want to be clean, but because they want to be original. They want to do jokes that nobody else is doing. Nate Bargatze's joke about the dead horse is fantastic because nobody else does jokes about finding a dead horse. Aaron Weber has got a joke about a dipstick that is so funny. Greg Warren has got a joke about peanut butter. He's got like 30 minutes about peanut butter, and it is hilarious because no one does that much material on peanut butter. You do dating apps and you do all this other nonsense. But anyway, upcoming, I've got a few fun gigs coming up. On Friday of this week, I'm going to the high school that I used to work at, and I'm going to do their junior senior banquet and do comedy at their junior senior banquet. I mean, it's great. I'm into it. I'm excited. I miss being a teacher most days. Most days I am very glad that I'm not teaching anymore, and also I miss teaching because it's just the nature of the beast. It's fun. I think I'm looking forward to going back and to doing this, but it is a non-paid gig, 20 minutes. It's going to be real weird. But the downside is this weekend I have been offered so much work, but I've had to turn it down because of this free charity weekend, which is, it's fine. I've come to the conclusion, if it's on my calendar, it's on my calendar. That's fine. But even this last couple days, I think Thursday of this week, I was offered, "Hey, do you want to do 5 shows featuring for Chris Kattan?" Yeah, absolutely I do. But I can't because I told a junior in high school that I would do a free banquet. Such is life. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to come along. So I'm not stressing it. On Saturday, I've got a fun gig. I'm going to MC at a dog pageant. I have no idea what that means. All I know is I'm going to have the microphone and there will be dogs around. It's going to be a dog. I don't know if it's a fashion show, But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good time. I mean, whenever you're an MC for a dog pageant, I mean, come on. It reminds me of a show I did probably about a year ago now. I was doing an auction gig at a golf course in Dayton. And basically, like, we do this auction every year. We're thinking about having a comedian do the auctioning instead of just a normal person. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah. And it was a blast. I just roasted those golfers all day long. So this feels similar. I don't know what I'm going to say about dogs, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna get our dog material, doing our dog pageant stuff. In other comedic related news, I am strongly considering writing a screenplay. Basically, I've got a comedian friend who's contacting me, and we've been discussing writing a screenplay. I am a little intimidated by the idea of writing a screenplay. He actually bought me a book on screenplays, how to write screenplays, and sent it to me, and I've been reading that book. Still a little intimidating. The interesting piece is I'm not intimidated about writing a novel. I think a novel would be fun, interesting. I've been watching on BBC Maestro. So BBC Maestro is like the British version of Masterclass. And with that, I bought one of their courses, and it's Lee Child. Lee Child is the Jack Reacher author, the author of the Jack Reacher books. And he's teaching this how to write thrillers course. And I've been, consuming quite a bit of that. I don't know how many lessons, but I think I'm on lesson like 22. And it's very interesting. I have been enjoying it. And it also feels like, okay, I can do this. I don't know if I can now, but, give it a shot. Why not? So I'm thinking about writing a novel. We'll see if it goes anywhere. The interesting thing is Sam Tallent. He wrote a novel. He's a comedian, very funny guy. He's out of Denver. Actually, one of the best comedians I've seen. And he's one of these guys where whenever you see him, you're like, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be super famous. So good. And he was actually on Joe Rogan's podcast recently. So he's definitely moving up in the comedic world. He wrote a novel about a comedian, like a road dog comedian. And I have given it a couple of chances and really not enjoyed it. I really think I should try once more to finish this book. I've read 70 pages. Now, I can't say enough nice things about Sam Tallent. He is an amazing comedian. If he's ever in town, I will go to that show 100% of the time. He is a blast. I did not really enjoy the book. However, maybe I can see it afresh. I want to give it another chance. And I haven't finished the book, so maybe it all comes together at the end. I don't know. The other comedy-related thing that I've been doing is something I mentioned this last week, is doing an experiment. So what I did was I took some of my one-liner jokes and recorded little videos. So I have a Christmas ornament that is a very small microphone. It is 3 inches. It's a Christmas ornament style microphone. It's not a real microphone. It's tiny. And my wife and I went to Frankenmuth, Michigan, and they have this giant Christmas store, and we were buying Christmas ornaments. And this is the one that we got to represent my comedy. And so now I have this little tiny microphone. And so what I did is I took the little tiny microphone, pretended like it was real, held it as if I was talking into it. Now it's small and doesn't work, and then I did my one-liners into that. And they're on my YouTube channel. I'm calling them Tiny Mike Jokes. And they're just really kind of groaners, not the best jokes, one-liners, but dad jokes, pun jokes. They're still fun though. I liked it. So I'm gonna do a few more of those. But for right now, I've just done the two at the moment. I'm gonna tell you this story. So this was about at this point getting close to 2 years ago. So when I moved to Kentucky, I started working at a school in a part-time capacity teaching math. The school year ended and I was looking for another school job. And so I got a job at a different school teaching history and geography, which I enjoyed quite a bit better. That's the school that I'm going back to at the end of this week. But before that school started, so the summer before I ever walked on that campus, I was still looking at jobs. I was interested in other opportunities. And this is pretty common for me. Now, the job that I currently have, my current day job, I am a big fan of it. I feel like it's a good fit. I'm for it. I'm not really looking for another job. But when you're a teacher, the pay's not great. My school at least didn't offer benefits. I wanted a better job, and I knew that there's so much that I could do. So before that job started, I was still looking for another job. And I always thought I'd be a good salesman. I thought that would be something that I would enjoy and would be good at. You fast forward a few months later, I did do some salesman jobs. I sold mosquito poison at a company called the Mosquito Squad. And it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. It was also a little boring and cold calls, and but at the same time, overall, I enjoyed it. So this is before I started my teaching job. The summer before, I saw an ad for a salesman at a funeral home. So I was going to sell funeral services and caskets and headstones and stuff like that. And I don't know why, but I thought I'd be good at it. So I showed up at this job. I was wearing a suit and was talking to this big wig. I don't know what he was. Manager's manager. He was clearly high up in the company. And he would say stuff like, "Oh, in the funeral world, everybody knows me." Like, that's a weird flex, man. It's a weird flex. But I'm interviewing with him, and I have a tendency in an interview to just be like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sure." I mean, what's the point of really contemplating whether or not you'd be good at something when you don't even know? Yeah, I think I'd be good at it, so let's give it a shot. Anyway, he's going on and on about what it takes to be a good casket salesman and how you have to close the deal and you have to do this, but you also have to be empathetic. So the fact that I went to seminary, he was super into. He's like, "Oh, okay, well, this is going to be a nice guy who can also hopefully learn how to close a deal." And he's like, "Okay, sometimes you got to twist these old ladies' arms. You got to twist their arms. You got to say, hey, no, this is what you need. You need this and this and this, and you need to make a decision right now. And you got to really put to the screws to these old ladies. Are you okay with that? And I said, sure. Thinking, I don't know if I'm okay with that. But, I mean, basically say anything. He's got me alone in this little room, and this interview has been lasting for an hour at this point. And I just wanted to go get some tacos. So, anyway, he tells me, he offers me the job, and I say, hey, I'm going to need to, let me check with my wife. Let me talk to my wife, because I have another opportunity, and I want to talk to her to see what's going on. And he also mentions that he interviewed one guy, and the guy went off to lunch, and the lunch monster ate him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, he went off to lunch and then just never came back? That sounds like a good idea. So what I did is I went off to lunch and went to Taco Bell, got some tacos, and called my wife. And she said, well, you don't know about this new school. You're about to start. You're like 2 weeks away from starting at a brand new school that you might really enjoy working at. Do that. And that sounded like a good idea. And then she also says, hey, there's funeral homes all over the place. If you want to be a casket salesman, be a casket salesman. But school years don't always start at the same time, and you'll be able to, you can try this school and then jump back in. So anyway, I went off to my tacos, talked to my wife. She convinced me to not be a casket salesman, and I never went back. Didn't call, just ghosted them, which I thought was, that's what I should do for a funeral home. I don't know. He was slimy, but I think he knew he was slimy. He would say stuff like, oh, how much are you making as a teacher? And I would tell him, and he's like, oh, I could never live on that. Like, this is Kentucky, man. Yeah, you can. I mean, I guess you can't live on that in Manhattan, but yeah, Little Caesars has pizzas that are like $5. You can live on that pretty easy, dude. But he didn't like that. Anyway, slimy casket salesman. Hey, if you don't want to get taken advantage of with your casket salesman, you can do it on your own. It would be way smarter as opposed to like sending in a grieving widow to like really make your arrangements beforehand. I don't know. It's interesting as well. Like my wife, she's going to outlive me, and I'm okay with that. That's just the way things are. The chances of me outliving her are slim to none. But she's also told me that I'm getting cremated. Like, not my choice. And because she's going to be alive and I won't be, I guess I'm getting cremated. Now, I get it. The size of coffin, the number of pallbearers would be just outrageous. So, it makes sense. But there you go. There's my casket salesman story. I've been reading quite a bit. I have been reading that book, that screenplay book. It's called Story by Robert McKee. Pretty interesting. It is. There's some inspiring pieces to it where you'll read a couple of chapters and instantly think, oh, let me go write a screenplay. This can't be that hard. Now, of course, I'm sure it's very hard, but it is at least inspiring in that regard. I've also started in the last week a book called Skip the Line by James Altucher, which so far is good. It's interesting. I read the introduction and stopped reading the introduction 3 or 4 times and just like, oh my goodness, this is so good. Like, had to like put it down and think about it. And then read the first chapter and was a little disappointed on the first chapter. But the introduction still is very, very good. And he's talking about all sorts of different things. The basics is we got to figure out a way to get good at something in a lot faster than 10,000 hours. So he's the Malcolm Gladwell outliers 10,000 hours to become an expert rule. He's taking issue with that because that means you're at the back of the line. Well, he wants to skip the line, get to the front. How do I get to the front? And one of the things that he's trying to get good at is actually stand-up comedy. He talks about chess and he talks about starting businesses and whatever, but he also talks about stand-up comedy, which is interesting. So the idea that a guy that is, 6 months into comedy, that he gets to headline at a comedy club to a comedian, that's ridiculous. However, apparently he got that opportunity. He didn't go into detail, but it sounded like he got that opportunity and it didn't go well, which, yeah, it's not going to go well. Anyway, then the other book that I'm reading is it is about C.S. Lewis. It's a biography, a kind of a almost devotional style biography of C.S. Lewis. And it starts with C.S. Lewis in World War I. So C.S. Lewis is famous for writing the Chronicles of Narnia. He also wrote the Screwtape Letters and Mere Christianity. And he was a officer in World War I. And that's where it starts. Which, when I think of C.S. Lewis, I don't think of him being a soldier in a trench in World War I. So it's an interesting way to already frame him. Now, I haven't gotten much into the book, but I have enjoyed that reframing of his life so far. And then the last book that I'll talk about is this one here. It is Comedy Writing Self-Taught by Jean Perret. And I've had this book for a while, and I just finished chapter 11. And so I've probably had this book for a couple of years and haven't really been reading it consistently, but just in the last week read chapter 11, where he's talking about writing comedy in routines. And so the idea, and this is something that I've learned, is you take any topic in the world, a comedian can write 5 or 6 jokes on it. Can a comedian write 20 jokes, 25, 30 jokes on it? No, not really. Can you write 5? Yes. So you take a topic, and then the first thing you do is you take that topic and you break that topic down into 5 or 6 subtopics. And then for each of those subtopics, write 5 jokes. Well, if you do that, then you end up having 25 to 35 jokes on the one main topic. That's brilliant. It took me a while to figure that out, but I'm like, it's great. I love it. So anyway, I read that this week and I've been working on that and have been enjoying it. The diet, I think I mentioned this last week. So last week was May 1st, my last podcast. It is now May 7th, and I'm already off on my May goals. My May goal was to be keto, so low carb every day except Sundays, and have Sundays as my cheat day. This week, I got off that pretty quick. I had a long day on Thursday. I actually was at my job for 11 hours, and I was supposed to go to a comedy club and do a set, but then they called me and they said, oh, okay, we had a mix-up. We double booked. You're not coming in. And so I just went home, and I was actually thankful to go home because I was tired. It was a long day. And on my way home, got Little Caesars. Oh my goodness, Little Caesars. They know me. They see me coming, and I am exactly the kind of guy who loves Little Caesars. Oh my goodness. But I got Little Caesars on Thursday, so it was a little frustrating because Thursday for breakfast and lunch I was low carb, doing my thing, being good, and then for dinner I just went bananas. And then Friday also went quite bananas. I don't remember everything, but I'm sure there was some Chinese food involved. I think there was some. Oh, I know now. Yeah, I woke up early on Friday and I went to Walmart. And on my way back, I got McDonald's breakfast. For lunch, we did some sort of fast food, or I think we went to Steak and Shake, something like that. And then Saturday was the Derby Day. And you're like, okay, well, it's Derby Day. This is Louisville. This is Derby Day. We've got to celebrate via food. Like, why do you need to celebrate via food? Well, because, it's Derby Day. But you're not even going to watch the Derby. Yeah. But still, we should get some donuts. So we woke up, went to my favorite bakery. It is Nord's Bakery. And got some maple bacon donuts. Outstanding. And then for lunch, we went to Chuy's, which was the 6th of May. So not Cinco de Mayo, but the day after Cinco de Mayo. Seis de Mayo, I don't know. And got some Chuy's, some Tex-Mex. Super, super good. And then today, which is Sunday, I have been good. I have been low carb all day. Now it's getting near the end of the day, so I think I'll be able to make it. I did preach this morning, and then as soon as I got home, I took a real long nap, like 3-hour nap. So it's easy to be on a diet if you're asleep. So far today has been good, but I should have had one cheat day so far this month. And instead I've had like 2.5, because Friday and Saturday and then half a Thursday. So not great, but it was Derby. What are you going to do? I'm trying my new bits. The new bits that I'm trying out haven't really had a chance. Haven't been to a whole lot of open mics. Last night I was going to throw in some new bits at the show in Cincinnati, but I ran out of time. They gave me 20 minutes. I ended up doing 21. Had a great time. Had a very good set. Did some crowd work. The crowd enjoyed it. Everything went well. But I also lost track of time and I didn't get a chance to get to my stuff. So once I felt like I took a good amount of time to just win the crowd over, have fun, establish myself. And then I saw, I have 2 minutes left. Let me do my closers and then get out of there. As opposed to being able to do some of my good stuff. But hey, such is life. I was looking through an old comedy notebook recently, and I had this bit that I had written out and had it pretty well thought out. But I've never done it. I've never done it on stage. And the idea is that I've got huge hands and sausage fingers that they're like Johnsonville cheddar wursts. Like my fingers have the texture of a cheese-infused sausage. And I also have a small phone, like an iPhone 6. So when I'm texting on my iPhone 6, it looks like I'm texting on a TikTok box. So that's the joke. I think I started with I do voice to text a lot, because I have giant sausage fingers. And I do. I really do have big fingers and do a lot of voice to text because of that. Because it's hard to text when you got big old juicy cheese infused fingers. Anyway, well, hey, that's the podcast for today. Glad you're joining us, and take care.